Culture Man-Children, PCMC. I'm your host, Mike Bongiorno. This is a podcast that is all about pop culture, TV, video games, movies, comic books, toys, everything. This podcast you're about to hear, I recorded with my brother Anthony Bongiorno, and I did something which I've done before, which is I mistakenly thought I was recording and I wasn't. I'm an idiot. This has happened a few times before. We recorded basically half the episode and then realized we weren't recording and had to sort of backtrack and start again. So what you're about to hear is, we have very weird energy because we're discombobulated, maybe even a little defeated, but you don't miss any of our content because we go back over our list of underrated movie sequels. That is the topic of today's episode. Underrated sequels. Sequels that came out that did not get their due. So, Pop Culture Man-Children is available anywhere podcasts are found. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and share. So, without further ado, here is Underrated Sequels.
This is Pop Culture Man-Children. We are recording this. I did something that I've done before.
You're a dummy.
Like a fucking idiot. I wasn't recording. My recording, you have to press it. You press it once to make the mics go on, and then the red light blinks, and then you press it again to record.
Son of a bitch.
And we did
30 minutes.
We did half the episode. You would have loved it. So
what is it? Now it's just a conversation we had.
Yeah, we just talked to each other without a fucking microphone. That's disgusting. So, fuck. What do we say? All right, so your list was more... Your list was... We both did 5. Your list was least to most hot take.
Yes.
Right? Mine
yeah.
is just random ones. All right, tell me your first one again.
All right.
Don't feel any necessity to try to
I feel like
repeat.
I'm trying to repeat everything I said. All right. So my first one is Grease 2.
Which I think is kind of ridiculous. But you think it has good music. Tell us again why you think this is a choice that makes any sense.
I think it's got great music. I think it's got...
I'm going to disagree with you on that.
I think... But why? Like, what songs do you not like?
I don't like any of the songs. I don't like Cool Rider.
How do you not like Cool Rider?
I don't
Cool
think
Rider
any of the
is
songs...
the best Grease song.
Of
the franchise.
Of all of Grease.
Of the franchise.
No.
You're wrong. It is one... It could have been a pop hit on its own.
I mean, it's got a better message, right?
The movie? Yeah,
yeah,
it does.
because the first movie kind of ends with, like, change yourself.
It's way cooler, and it's way more, like, feminist, and Michelle Pfeiffer's, Stephanie Zanoni's a great character. Okay. But I like Do It For Our Country, Reproduction,
I think those
Back
are,
to School.
I think
those
the
are all
songs
great
are
songs.
stupider.
They're sillier.
Right.
But that's okay. Grease 1 is kind of silly, too. I think a lot of people revere Grease 1 too much. Grease 1's got problems.
All right. So I said that, so then I went.
I like that we're just recapping a conversation that nobody's going to hear.
Like, it's going to, for the people listening, they're like, well, okay.
I wanted to hear you talk more about that.
Muppets Most Wanted, which is, you could argue that there's a lot of Muppet movies, but this is really is a sequel to The Muppets, which was the reboot with Amy Adams and Jason Segel. And I would argue it's a sequel to that because that movie introduces a new human Muppet or like a Muppet. I forget what it was.
His brother is a Muppet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But he was raised with humans, and he wants to be a Muppet. He feels like those are his people. And that character...
And there's that song, Man or Muppet, which was nominated for an Oscar.
Right. Insane. So that character is in Muppets Most Wanted. And Muppets Most Wanted, I think, is funnier. It's got Tina Fey. It's got my favorite line where Danny Trejo plays a small character in it, and you think, like, he's a character. Then, like, she's just like... they're in prison, and she's like, "Good night, Danny Trejo." It's like, wait, he's playing himself.
Good night, Fozzie. Good night, Kermit. Good night, Danny Trejo.
That meme that was big a couple years ago with Kermit, evil Kermit talking to regular Kermit, and it became a meme for like you, the dark side of you talking to the light side of you, comes from this movie. And the evil Kermit's funny.
Hello, Fonzie.
He calls Fozzie Bear Fonzie, which is hilarious.
It's really good. I think it's way better than the Jason Segel, Amy Adams Muppets, like by a lot.
I think it's way better than Grease 2.
Listen,
do you think Grease 2 is an actual good movie, or it's going with our premise, it's an underrated sequel?
Well, do we have that on the record?
No.
All right, so let's back up. We said last time around that
Yeah.
some of these titles are not necessarily, especially on my list, they're not necessarily good movies, but they are worthy of more than they got, I guess, or worthy of another look.
I'm gonna say that only one movie on my list
Really?
is not
I think-
necessarily good.
But I put Grease 2 at the end of my list because I feel it's the least controversial, because I do think that
People
a
have-
lot of
yeah.
people like it, and I think it's a good movie.
Yeah,
I think it's like a worthy sequel to Grease.
yeah. And we haven't
And
said
I like it better.
this is Pop Culture Man Children. I'm the host, Mike Bongiorno.
We're all turned around.
This is my brother Anthony Bongiorno. He's co-hosting.
Yo,
Thanks for being here, Anthony.
thank you for having me in my house.
We didn't we have such amazing points in the first
I know.
episode? We were like articulate. It was maybe the best episode we
you
ever
guys
had.
would have loved it.
Oh my god, it's way better than what this has been. Right? This is fucking shit. Okay, tell me your next one.
All right, so my next one is Scream 4.
Now I pointed out.
Now, what I said 20 minutes ago.
No, what I said was, this was during my not sober time, so I was super high when I saw.
Wow,
Scream
you're really
4.
going to say that again?
Yeah, yeah.
I thought maybe you'd
No,
take
no,
a
no.
different course this time around.
No. I'm you know, it's all about truth for me. So I don't remember it. And Anthony says I didn't like it. I remember liking it.
No,
but
you
I
didn't.
don't remember it.
It's funny that you just don't remember it.
I was
We
such
saw it together, and
Yeah.
I remember the minute it ended, people clapped because we saw
Yeah.
it the opening night, like the midnight before.
right.
The opening day, people were clapping and people were like, "Oh my god, that's so good!" And I remember you saying specifically, because I remember thinking it was a weird thing to say, and now that I know you were high, it makes
Yeah.
sense that you said it. You said it was kind of weak sauce, don't you think? And I was like, "Weak sauce? What the
Weak
fuck?"
sauce.
So that was high, Mike, saying I initially you thought that it was weak.
Explain what you like about the opening, though.
I think that the opening is it starts with the first kill, but then you find out that that's the stab movie that characters are watching, and then there's another kill, and then that's a stab movie that had a stab movie reference in it, and then finally you're in the Scream movie,
Right.
The universe of the actual
Right.
movie. So it's very, very meta. It's like the first kill, but it's like each one is like shoved up the other one's
the
ass,
most
kind of like a
clever-
Russian doll of first kills.
Yeah,
It's a very clever opening.
It's a very clever first kill. I think this part 2 has a very clever. Maybe the best part of part 2 is the first kill, because they're in the theater
Yes.
watching the beginning. That is like a
Scream
remake
is a
of
very meta
1.
series,
Right.
And I think Scream 3
Has Jay and Silent Bob in it.
Well, saying Scream 3 Scream 3
And Carrie Fisher.
is meta, but it goes into the to the like the filmmaking
Yeah,
side of
right,
it,
the-
which is boring.
The killer of Scream 3 is a director who's the
sucks.
half brother.
Yeah,
of
it's so soap
Neve
opera
Campbell's
and
character.
like Scooby Doo ish. And then there is all that shitty humor in it, like Carrie Fisher saying like I could have been Princess Leia. It's like even though I love Carrie Fisher, like it's bad writing.
Yeah, it's a fucking bad one.
Yeah,
Um,
and the Jay and Silent Bob part is just.
Why?
Well, this is our. Last time we didn't shit on Kevin Smith, but this time we are.
Yeah, and also, one thing I like about the opening is when I saw it, I was in getting my master's degree, so I was into philosophy, postmodern philosophy. So it's a lot like
Humble brag.
it's a lot more. Listen, it's a lot like Simulation and Simulacra, which is by Jean Baudrillard. If you ever seen The Matrix, when Neo opens his desk door, you see a copy of it in there, which is a sort of hint
didn't-
on what the movie's
The
about.
Simulacrum inspired The Matrix, didn't it?
Yes, so the
I
idea.
read pieces of it in college.
Yeah,
I remember the part about Disneyland.
Yes, like Disneyland is the most real place on Earth because it acknowledges that it's fake.
Yeah.
The idea of simulation simulacrum is when you copy something and you keep copying it, you will eventually lose reality. Like in the book, they talk about the map maker fairy tale where there's a kingdom and then the king goes to a map maker and says, can you make a map that's the actual size of the kingdom and put it over the kingdom? And they do that, but then people forget that that's a map. So then they keep making more maps on top of it.
Yeah.
Like that's the sort of metaphor there. And you could see where the Matrix comes from that. I like that in the beginning of Scream 4, but now that I'm remembering more about it, I read that there was a line in the original script that's not in the movie.
Which was a good line.
That I feel like would have taken it to fucking a better. It would have made it so much more clever. Which is, you just said the opening. It's a movie, and then it's a movie. Oh, it's a movie within a movie, and then the last thing is like, this is the real world. Here's the real first kill. But there's a line of dialogue where in the last part of the last section, where the real girl is being really killed, she says to the killer, "Is this real life?"
No, she says this, but you're not real.
But you're not real.
Right.
Which is totally Baudrillardian fucking philosophy.
I don't know why they cut that out.
It's so fucking clever because it's like she living in the real world. She like copies of copies makes you lose reality. So
Right.
like she even doesn't even the fact that she's being killed. She's like, this can't be real. So I really
it's
wish
because they're the Woodsboro kids, but they grew up in the world of like there was this thing that happened before they were born.
Yeah.
That movies are based on.
Yeah.
And to them, it's not real.
Yeah.
It's just the movies.
And
what's ironic about that is that the murders themselves were inspired by horror movies.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
very. I think Scream 4 is. It's got its problems, but I think it's very clever. That opening is really, really strong. I like the new kids. My one complaint, as I said before, is that none of the new kids survived. So
Right.
they left. It kind of was like a one and done. Like they left no opening for a sequel.
Right. And as I said before,
This is really like the simulacrum. We're trying to relive.
oh my God, we did it on
A
purpose.
moment.
We did this on purpose. This is a podcast of a podcast of a podcast. What I said before was one of the main three should have died. Nev Campbell,
It
David
should have been
Arquette,
David Arquette, I think.
or Courtney Cox. One of the three,
Not-
because they survive all four, and it's like, come on.
Yeah.
Two
It would have
was-
been interesting to kill Nev Campbell.
2 was daring enough to kill Jamie
Randy.
Kennedy's character, and then they never were daring enough again.
3 killed Liev Schreiber, which
Yeah,
that was interesting because that was the opening kill. Was a character you already knew. That was the first
And
time
he was
that
somebody
happened.
who was now had become famous because he was wrongly
That's probably
accused
the
of
only
killing.
good part of Scream 3 is that first kill.
Scream 3 has interesting ideas in it, but
It's so bad.
between Scream 1 and Scream 2, Columbine happened, and I know that's like 1,000 mass shootings ago, but
That was the big deal.
So yes, that's why Scream 2 and 3 are very tame in terms of gore.
But
Where
Scream 4 is a return to form. There's a lot of violence in it.
Right, you
Bloody kills.
Right, you were talking before about there's a scene that I kind of remember through my haze of highness where there's a scene where a girl's being killed in her bedroom.
So the scene, I'll go deeper into it now since we're doing this again. The scene was Emma Roberts, who, spoiler alert, it turns out is one of the killers.
Right.
But Emma Roberts is in her room with Hayden Panettiere, and she's talking on the phone across the alley to her friend's house who lives next door.
Which is kind of a Nightmare on Elm Street reference.
Yes. And he's like, I'm in the closet. And then they open the closet and he's not there. And Hayden Panettiere is like, you're a liar. And he's like, I didn't say it was your closet. And then across the way, they see him come out of her closet.
Yeah.
And it's a huge shock. And then he kills her really violently. And like, it's really kind of relentless. Like the camera doesn't move away and it's really bloody. And I was saying that I think that's the best kill in the series since the Casey, her character was Casey, the Drew Barrymore kill.
Right. Because
in
the Drew
first
Barrymore
one.
is gutted in the first one.
That first, that's iconic Scream.
Yeah.
And it's got its weak kills, like the Alison Brie kill. The whole Alison Brie character and kill is horrible,
So pointless.
and boring and pointless. But that one was really, and that almost feels like it was added later, like the principal.
Yes,
from
yes,
the
yes.
first one.
Yeah, and every Scream movie tried to add some technology. Like Scream 1, he calls and he's menacing on the phone, and then he comes out and kills you. Scream 2, he has now a voice box in his mask so he can speak while in person.
Yeah,
with
and that's
you.
horrible now, looking back.
it's-
Right here.
Yeah. And Scream 3, his voice box now is fucking magical and can do anybody's
any voice.
So there's a lot of like
You think
faking
you're on
you
the
out
phone with
and,
Sydney, but it's actually the
right.
killer.
And then in the fourth one, and they don't even really go far with this.
They should.
He's like recording it all because
Yeah.
it's sort of like a YouTube-y kind of streaming. But they kind of touch on that idea and then don't really deliver
Well,
on
because
it.
the thing with Scream 4 is they say like, well, this time around he's recording the kills and putting them on the internet.
Right, it's going to be viral.
Which, and we talked before about how like Scream 2 is so 90s because the motivation is like they tie it to OJ and it's like the trial is where they're going to get the fame.
The motivation in 4...
Well, for one of That's Mickey's motivation. But then Laurie Metcalf kills him, and she's like, "That's a stupid motive. It's really just because you killed my son."
Right. Which is sort of a Friday the 13th kind of homage.
Isn't it crazy that Laurie Metcalf is one of this Ghostface? What's interesting about Scream as a
She's
series?
like 90 pounds. How did
is
she
that-
kill all those
I
people?
know. What's interesting about Scream as a series is it's the only like slasher series where like Ghostface is always different people.
Right. So
So
like when
the
they make like
Ghostface-
Ghostface action figures,
Yeah,
it's
it's like which there have been like 8 Ghostfaces.
it's like a concept.
Yeah, it was Stu. Who was it?
Billy and Stu.
Billy and Stu. Then it was Laurie Metcalf and Mickey.
Right. Who's what's his name? Who's a big star now?
Yeah,
He was just in Once Upon a Time.
Timothy Olyphant.
Oliphant, yeah.
Oliphant. Then the third one was just her brother.
Right, it's just one guy.
Although-
and he's a movie director, which is sort of kind of interesting.
They also tried to do some retconning where they said that he was responsible for Billy and Stu as well.
Right. Like he gave them the idea, which kind of is cool
Yeah.
until you think that it makes no fucking sense.
And then 4 is Emma Roberts and Kieran Culkin.
And what's interesting
So
about
there have
Emma
been 7
Roberts,
ghost faces altogether.
What's interesting about Emma Roberts is she's not really the protagonist of the movie. The protagonist is still Neve Campbell, but in
her world,
she is the victim. So like,
Right.
and she plays Sydney's cousin,
Yeah.
Neve Campbell's cousin. So it's like, what if the protagonist actually is the killer, but she's not the protagonist really? Of
It's
the
also
movie
weird
Scream
then
4.
because when you when you think of all 4 of them together, it's like so Sydney's brother killed her mother and tried to kill her. Then her cousin killed her aunt and tried to kill her. So it's like a really family. It's like a family drama.
Yeah. It's
Because her aunt dies. Emma Roberts kills her own mother in it.
There's also been a Scream TV series.
Oh,
and then they recently rebooted it again. But like,
Wasn't it supernatural? Didn't
God,
it have
I don't know.
supernatural elements?
It didn't have the mask,
Really?
the MTV one, but then they just redid it again on like VH1, and it did have the mask.
Who the fuck watches that?
But people said it was really bad. The only interesting thing I heard about it is the VH1 series was predominantly an African American cast, which is sort of interesting because African American people were not in the movies that much.
What's interesting about that is that now that you bring that up, they were so underrepresented in the Scream movies that they even like the first kill of Scream 2 is like a comment on the fact that the first one has no diversity.
Right.
But then the rest of the movie goes on with only white characters.
Right.
Predominantly white characters.
You could only Scream as a series kept getting worse because cleverness is it's a
cheap.
depreciating
There's
the
diminishing
value of
returns.
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
By the time you're doing the 4th one, yes, you could go, aren't horror movies shitty that they have so many sequels? And it's like, yeah, but
What I think what they should have explored more in Scream 4 is the way they sold it, which was like it was supposed to be like, this is how you do, these are the rules of a horror reboot.
right.
The horror reboot doesn't follow the rules, and the main character can die in a horror reboot
Right.
because it was during the time of horror reboots.
Right.
But they kind of abandoned that halfway through the
But
movie.
even in Scream 2 and 3, the
they're
whole
like, oh,
rules
it's a
thing made no
copycat,
sense.
and then the rules, they dropped that too.
Right.
Remember, there's that whole scene in Scream 2 where they're like, "Oh, their names match up,"
And
but
they
then it
completely
never
give that
comes
up.
to anything.
Well,
Yeah,
remember in Scream fucking 3, Randy made a video before he died
Yeah.
of a trilogy rules,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like, first of all, how many horror trilogies
there
can you
are
even
no
think
horror
of?
trilogies. Yeah. Anyway, all right. So, what's your next one?
So the next one I did, which is not a shock to you because we did it already.
But it's our first crossover because I have it on my list also.
Yeah, The Exorcist Part 3. The Exorcist Part 3 is written and directed by the author of the Exorcist book, William Peter Blatty. And
Based on his book Legion.
Right, which is
was
a
spin-off of
right.
The Exorcist.
It's the detective character from The Exorcist who's really a
Kinderman.
small character in The Exorcist. He's just he's just investigating the death of the director who very early on in the story, Reagan throws out the window.
Yeah. Burke.
Yeah.
But then he
And-
strikes up a friendship with Damien Karras.
Right. In The Exorcist 3, it's a sort of murder mystery, but what ends up happening is it's a real killer, a serial killer, is executed on the night of the original Exorcist. And something wacky happens where that killer then jumps into the body of Damien, the priest. Which raises more questions than it answers. Even in the book, it's like, so he just walked out of the morgue and nobody gave a shit. But that's what happened. And in the movie, it's even, what's his name? Jason. Oh, what's his name?
Oh, the actor's name?
Yeah, Jason
like-
Miller, I think.
Has he been in anything else?
Well, he wrote a play about like high school football team that gets back together, and like that was like a Pulitzer Prize winning play.
Okay.
He's the
Wasn't he a boxer? Or is the character a boxer?
the character was a boxer.
Okay. Because he kind of looks, he's got like a Rocky vibe.
Yeah, Jason Miller played Father Karras. He's also the son-in-law of Jackie Gleason. He married Jackie Gleason's daughter.
Oh,
And-
is he the father of the guy from Speed 2?
Yeah, what's his name? Jason
That
Patrick.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know Jason Patrick is Jackie Gleason's grandson, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in The Exorcist Part 3, look, it's not as good as Part 1, but it is scary. One of the best jump scares in movie history
I know what you're gonna say. It's the
is
one
in
in
The
the
Exorcist
hospital?
3. Right. Actually, BuzzFeed just did a list of the best jump scares in movie
It was
history.
on there?
It was on there.
Oh, wow.
And you know what? Even ruining it for you, it's still going to get you. Go on YouTube, Exorcist 3 jump scare.
It's with where he has the huge clippers.
Right.
And he walks behind the nurse, right?
Right.
Because the camera cuts away when he's like right about to cut her head off.
Right.
And it comes so out of nowhere. It's so frightening.
It's a long shot
Of a hospital
of
hallway.
a hospital hallway. So you see in the really far in the depth of field a nurse walking in between rooms, and it's a sort of mundane scene. It goes on for a while, and there's no music.
It's one of those things where like the
You're
shot goes
lulled.
on for so long that you start to feel tense. Like this is not normal filmmaking. Like we should have cut away by
Right,
now.
but I would say also that you're lulled into not thinking anything crazy is going to happen.
Right.
And then the nurse walks out of one room. The camera zooms in very, very quickly. And, you know, in filmmaking, you're never supposed to zoom. You're supposed to actually move the camera physically because when you zoom, you flatten out the image. But a very quick zoom is very jarring. So it zooms in. While it zooms in, you hear a loud noise. And the choreography is perfect. As she steps out and she's just making, you know, let's say there's 4 steps between one room and the next. She takes a first step out, then she takes a second step out. Right behind her is a nun who's being possessed by the killer with these giant garden shears that are right behind the woman, like right on the back of her neck.
Yeah.
So she's going to cut the woman's head off. And the movie already sets up that these shears are very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like step 1, step 2, step 3. We don't see it happen.
That's what, like the scene cuts away right before she's about to like close the garden shears.
I don't know if that happens or if they just walk into the room.
No, it cuts away. I think it's like it zooms in, you see her with it, and then it cuts away. I don't think you see them walk into the room.
Good. Even us describing it, it will still scare you.
It's a really
an
good
amazing
scare.
And just the visuals of
The
it.
sound is really jarring.
Yeah, and the idea of like it's right behind you, like
Yeah.
your
Because
death
that's the thing.
is
The,
right behind
the nurse
you.
is just walking, not knowing that somebody's right behind her, about to kill her.
Right.
But you're watching it, so you, the viewer, feel uncomfortable because you're like watching somebody about to be killed, who doesn't know
Yeah.
they're about to be killed.
It's really fucking scary. And the movie itself is kind of brutal. Like there's heads
There are
cut
lots
off.
of yeah, I remember in the book, one of the murders is, or a couple of the murders are children being killed.
Yeah.
Definitely in the book, the first is a kid who's killed. They're all decapitated, I think.
There's one kill where the body has no blood in it. And they find jars of the
Yes,
blood.
yes,
And they
yes.
explain, like, the medical examiner explains, like, and not one drop of blood is spilled. And, like, they
Yeah.
explain, like, this killer would have to, like, put a tube in you and then, like, pump your legs to get all the blood out. And then writes, "It's a Wonderful Life" on the wall.
Yeah.
So I think it's really awesome because it's like it's an exorcist movie, but it's also a killer movie.
But the weakest part, as we said before, is that because the book was Legion,
Right.
the movie became an Exorcist sequel.
Right.
So they had to put in the last act. The studio demanded they put in an exorcism scene.
Right. And there is no
There is
exorcism.
no exorcism in the book.
And the exorcism scene in the movie is probably the weakest thing because God appears. And the first movie is very realistic.
Yeah.
And in the end of The Exorcist 3, like, the exorcism is not working. And then, like, a shaft of light comes through the window and, like, saves the day. And it's like...
Yeah, it's not great.
Like it's like God. Like I don't know.
Also, it's too.
I'm not against God
In the first-
but it's like using God, like having the first movie.
It's such a Deus Ex Machina that it's literally Deus Ex Machina. Like
Right.
it's literally God comes in and saves the
and
day.
God's literally just a beam of light.
Yeah, yeah.
And the first movie, although has a demon in it, you could also read the first movie as being about a psychological problem.
Well,
That's
there are
what makes
lots
the first movie and the first book very clever.
There are lots of clues in the first movie that it's not a real possession, like the fact that he sprinkles her with the water and tells her it's holy water, and she's like, "Oh, it burns," but then it's not holy water,
Right.
And a couple of other things.
The book goes further. In the book, there's a lot of like the priest researching, and like he finds like real like scientific evidence for like cases where somebody begins speaking a language they never spoke. Like every weird thing she does
Could be rationalized.
He finds a scientific reason for
Mm-hmm.
it. And it's him coming to the point of like believing it.
And then what's emphasized even more, it's emphasized in the first movie, but even more so in the book, is that exorcisms themselves, it's wild, but
Right.
in reality, like when they're performed, it's like a ritual that like takes days.
Right.
And like you keep at it.
And it's probably
And in Exorcist 3, it like takes 2 minutes.
right. And also they have to introduce an exorcist, so they create a character of a priest that's not in the Legion book, and he really doesn't do anything in the third movie.
It was supposed to be Father Dyer,
Right.
but that actor who's a real priest, didn't want to be in
do it. Yeah. But it's a good movie. It's a good horror movie.
It is good. It is really good.
The Exorcist Part 3 came out in 1990. Does it have a Fabio cameo? Yes.
I forgot all about that.
And also like some basketball player. Because I haven't seen, but
Oh yeah.
But wait,
But
don't
it's
get me
fun.
wrong. It's a dream of
It
heaven.
is.
It's not actually heaven.
yeah.
But don't be wrong. God does actually manifest at the end. But it sounds like we're shitting on it.
No,
it's
it's good.
underrated.
It is underrated.
And it'll scare you. I think it's scarier than The First Exorcist. I think The First
No,
Exorcist...
I don't think so.
I think The First Exorcist is an amazing movie. It's an amazing drama.
I
and
think
it's
you've
scary.
just seen it so many times, it's not scary to you anymore. The First Exorcist is fucking terrifying. The first time I saw The First Exorcist, I was a child.
Yeah.
But people who saw The First Exorcist as adults when it first came out were like, it's the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
This brings us to mine, which is, so I did a cheat, and my entry is Exorcist 2 and 3.
So I don't like to.
Nobody likes 2, including me. I don't really like it, but I think that it does interesting stuff because it is so different from the first one.
Yeah.
And it's a notorious box office and critical bomb.
Yeah.
Like it was literally laughed off the screen, and like they reshot the ending after it had already been released and re-released it or whatever. But it's basically it picks up 3 years later or so, and it's Reagan, who's the character who's possessed, who's now a teenager, is like in therapy dealing with the trauma of the possession because her psychiatrist doesn't believe that she doesn't remember it. And she's right, and that really Reagan is like repressing the memory of it. So it's got some like magical realism in it. There's a lot about like psychic ability.
Well, it goes the complete
They
other way,
introduce-
right?
yeah,
the first movie's very realistic.
Very realistic.
He
and
was
very,
a documentarian
Yeah.
before he made narrative. So the first movie's all like, let's take this fantastic thing and be as realistic as possible, even shooting it like it's a documentary. Where this movie, it's fucking
bananas.
costumes and fakery and
there's
special
a lot
effects.
there's like crazy dream sequences. There's a part where they fly on the wings of a locust. I mean,
Yeah.
it's wild. But what I was
wild.
gonna say is well, they introduced this like fake thing of like there's like a machine that she puts on her head and the psychiatrist puts
Oh,
on her head
yeah.
where their minds can link up and they can see each other's minds
Yeah.
and she could see her memories. And then John Borman said that he regrets it. He feels
John
that
Borman's the director
John Borman,
of 2.
second time I've done that. The director of 2, who also went on to direct good stuff. He directed Excalibur.
Yeah.
But he says now that he feels like he committed a sin because he didn't give the audience what they wanted, which was horror, because he felt he was originally offered the first one.
Yeah.
And he turned it down because he said that he had a child and he didn't want to direct a movie that was so dark and involved the torture of a child.
Yeah.
And then it was a huge hit. So then when he was offered the second one, he was like, okay, I'll take it if I can do what I want with it. And they said, okay. So he wanted to make it like lighter and have more. He called it like more joy, more meditation, more like magicality to it.
What you want
to
from a
make it like
sequel
an-
to The Exorcist.
Yeah, to make it like an antidote to the first one. And even if you watch
Not
it
a horror
at
movie.
the end, it's the same credits.
Yeah.
The same style of credits, but instead of it being a black background, it's a white background. So it's supposed to be like about like healing from the first one.
Interesting idea.
Interesting idea, but it's not a horror movie.
Right. So
It's just
no.
a weird kind of like I guess a sci-fi. I don't know. It's weird. It's not
I guess I would
good.
call it sci-fi-ish for sure.
Yeah, but I think it's
There's a lot of scenes of like overexposure or double exposure where it's like you see Linda Blair and you see Linda Blair as the possessed girl,
and they're like wrestling each other. And also she quickly transitions into just Linda Blair with red eyes because she refused to put the makeup back on.
oh really?
Yeah, so there's another actress who plays her with like the cut up face from the first one.
Yeah.
But then she quickly transitions into just Linda Blair with like red lipstick and red eyes. And that's supposed to
very
be, like,
stylistic,
that's
too.
the demon. But it's because Linda Blair refused after the first one. She was like a young girl and she had to go through like hours of makeup every day, and it was
Yeah.
horrible. And
now she's hot shit.
She said she wouldn't do the second one unless she didn't have
She
to put
pulled
on
the
the
J
makeup.
Law and she was like, I'm not going to be
Yeah.
in this fucking Mystique full body
Yeah,
makeup
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Fucking CGI
Yeah.
it.
So I think it's got some interesting shit in it.
It's
Martin
interesting for sure.
Scorsese likes it.
All right, that's something I've read on IMDb,
But
and
I
don't know if it's true.
I've read it elsewhere too. And you know who else really likes it?
Who?
Quentin Tarantino.
Fuck him. Of
Quentin
course he
Tarantino
does.
thinks it's more interesting than the first one.
It's long and pointless, so of course he likes it.
but no, Martin Scorsese apparently is a fan of it.
There were two endings. There was a happy ending where everybody lives, and then there's that got so panned. Even at the premiere, people were like, "Fuck this movie." That
Yeah, I think in the second ending, James Earl Jones' character dies.
yeah, they made it darker. The second, it wasn't
Yeah.
so like in the original ending, like they walk away in the sunset, like doo 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 doo.
Well, the score is really light and happy sounding. It's like church music-y.
like they had a huge success, and William Friedkin didn't want to do another one. Neither did the writer, but the studio was like, "We're gonna fucking do it." And then they just got someone else to do it. And so in some ways, The Exorcist Part 3 is the true Part 2.
Yeah. If it were today, they wouldn't even call it Exorcist 3. They'd make it a straight sequel and ignore 2.
Yeah, it would
And
be
they would just call it The Exorcist 2019.
The Exorcist, Legion, Legion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
William Friedkin has said that it's... Because William Friedkin's kind of like an outspoken guy.
I think he's an asshole.
He is an asshole. I was trying to be like nice, but he said like it's a piece of shit, and it was directed by a person with a demented mind. He kind of sounds Trumpy when he talks, and he was like the person who directed it's got a sick mind. It was a horrible movie, and he's like it's so bad it makes my movie seem worse.
Go
He
fuck
was like
yourself.
an abusive director. Ellen Burstyn has no nice things to say about him.
Right, because he like fired guns and like...
He fucked up her back for life.
Yeah, like...
In the scene where she's
That's
pulled,
not charming.
She's pulled backwards. She had already had a bad back, and she was like, "Take it easy." And then she's like, he told the person like, "Pull it really hard because we want to see real pain." And when she's screaming in pain, that's real pain you're seeing on the screen.
Cool. He made a movie in 2011 that I fucking despise called Killer Joe that has Matthew McConaughey in it. And like there's a scene where Matthew McConaughey makes this young girl like fillet, like he has a chicken wing
Oh, God.
and he holds it in front of his dick and he's like, "Eat this chicken wing." And it's like, it feels very 60s in that it's making misogyny seem like sexual liberation.
Like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, or like MASH. Ever see MASH, the original MASH?
The movie or the
Yeah,
show?
Yeah,
No.
the movie. They make sexually assaulting people like somehow it's like part of the sexual revolution, and now we look back and go, "This is wrong."
Like Porky's?
Yes.
Okay.
So fuck William Friedkin. I mean, what is it? The French Connection's good, and The Exorcist is good.
Yeah.
That's fucking it.
Let's see. Let's pull up his IMDb. John Boorman, as I said before, has made some good movies, I think.
Did he do Deer Hunter? John Boorman?
Yes.
Are you sure about that?
I'm saying it with authority, so...
I'm not hearing authority.
French Connection was before The Exorcist.
Yes, it was. It was
French
his first
Connection,
narrative
Exorcist,
movie.
Boys in the Band. That's a good movie.
Well, you know
Oh,
what?
he made Cruising in 1980.
But here's the crazy thing: Boys in the Band is considered like a queer iconic film,
And then he makes
Cruising is
Cruising
like the most
10 years
homophobic
later.
movie
Yeah.
ever.
yeah.
Because Cruising there is a serial killer in the gay nightclub scene. So what Al Pacino goes undercover as a gay man going to leather bars to try to find this guy.
And then he ends up being a killer at the end or something?
Yeah, well, like it's one of those things where it's like queerness is equated with insanity.
Yeah. And evil.
Yeah, but then he also then made Boys in the Band, which is kind of crazy.
Let me pull up John Borman here. Hold on. John Borman made Deliverance, not Deer Hunter. Deliverance is what you're thinking
Oh,
of.
Deliverance. Yeah, that
He
is
made
what I was
Deliverance?
thinking.
Oh, he
of.
also made Zardoz.
Zardoz, the classic Wizard of Oz takeoff with
A naked
Sean Connery.
Sean Connery. Exorcist 2, Excalibur.
I like Excalibur.
Queen and Country, The Tailor of Panama, Hope and Glory, The General. I don't know any of these movies.
I haven't revisited Excalibur in a long time now, so I don't know. If
He's
it's
received 5 Oscar nominations. Hope and Glory apparently was well received. All right, anyway, what's your next one?
good.
Oh, this is another crossover, right? Because I have this one
Yeah.
on my honorable
And this
mentions.
is the end of us crossing over.
Yeah, thank
We're gonna
God.
get into fresh territory. 2010, the year we made contact, which is the sequel.
Ba, ba,
Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum.
I wonder how that's going to sound.
It's gonna sound great. It is a sequel to the Stanley Kubrick classic 2001, and the Stanley Kubrick film is a tone poem. It is long. Most of it has no dialogue,
Unwatchable.
and when it does have dialogue, the dialogue is incidental. It doesn't mean anything. It's all just figurative representation. But also, when you walk away from it, you're like, what did it all mean? I always fell asleep watching it until last year. I saw it at Alamo Draft House with the intermission, which I think is very needed. You
Yes,
need that
a movie
intermission.
That long, they should bring back intermissions for really long movies.
Oh my God, Tarantino would do good
Oh,
with an
God.
intermission.
Forget it.
No, the intermission's good because you kind of like, what did you think of the first half? What was that? What did this mean? What did that mean?
It's a good thing. I don't know. Old movies used to have them.
Yeah,
Sound
but
of
for a movie
Music.
that heady, it was really
Yeah.
good. But 2010, which is directed by Peter Hyams, who was just a sort of, I forget what he directed. I'll look him up. It is a sequel. It's based on the second book by Arthur C. Clarke, and it more directly deals with the Cold War, which is sort of the background of the first book and movie.
Which really came to a head in the 80s.
Right,
And the movies, even though it takes place in 2010, is very, very a big reflection of the 80s.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, the idea is that the Cold War keeps going. Where it
Yeah.
really, it ended in 91 is the official end of the Cold
yeah,
War.
I guess. I believe so.
Yeah, because you have Russian cosmonauts and American astronauts on the same ship, and they're sort
And
of
their
working
captain is
together.
Helen Mirren giving a great performance.
Yes.
One of her earliest roles.
But
I
she's
think.
doing a Russian accent, which I think now people would find problematic.
I don't know. Like Meryl Streep does accents all the time.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like someone would be like, "Why can't you give it to a real Russian
somebody would
actor?"
be offended by that for sure.
It has some of the same. It has the same. It is a sequel. It has the same aesthetic. It's just
It's
more
the same
of a-
studio.
Yeah, and some of the same actors. Not Roy Scheider. Roy Scheider is taking the role from someone from the first movie.
Cara Delia shows up in it, doesn't he?
The guy who plays
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah.
Open the pod bay doors. Yeah, he shows up in it.
Yeah, because I remember him being like, "Hello," like he sees
Yeah, he's
him.
even in the trailer. Yeah, it's a sequel, but here's the thing. I think why people shit on it is the first movie is this like amazing piece of Stanley Kubrick art, and the second one, it's a really great sci-fi movie. It's got dialogue, it's narrative, the dialogue pushes the story along. It is more of a movie.
Yeah.
What you would expect from a movie, but it still is a sequel to the first movie, and I think
It
pushes
looks-
the idea further.
If you watch the trailer's got a lot of references and nods to 2001, and it's got the same music, which, like you said earlier, is very reminiscent of the. It's very similar to the Dr. Sleep trailer that we just got.
Right, it's like how will we, whether it's good or not, I feel like people are going to shit on it because it's a sequel to a classic Stanley Kubrick movie.
Right, but it's the Dr. Sleep trailer is so like marketing itself as a sequel to the Stanley Kubrick Shining.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I think 2010 is a great movie. It's I think if it were a standalone movie, it'd probably get a better. I think it was actually pretty well reviewed, but it just was a box office bomb.
Peter Hyams directed End of Days from 1999. That's the movie with it's like a devil movie with
coincidentally one of the thousands of movies inspired by The Exorcist.
Well, it was 1999, and it was like, turn it upside down, man. It's 666. Whoa. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Mm-hmm. He did The Relic. He did Sudden Death, Time Cop. Those are two fucking, what do you call it, movies. Jean-Claude Van Damme. Oh, he did Stay Tuned, starring John Ritter.
Oh my God, I haven't thought about that movie in 20 years.
That's a crazy movie.
He's in hell, but it's all TV stations, right?
Right. You know who the devil is, right?
Who?
Real life child pornography viewer Jeffrey Jones.
That's the principal from Ferris Bueller?
Yes.
Oh boy.
And the father from
I remember
Beetlejuice.
there's a nod to Three's Company in it.
Oh yeah. Don't think they didn't do it. So I think 2010 is really a good movie. It people don't talk about it, but it's a good movie.
It is. I'm looking now at like how it was reviewed at the time, and it was pretty well reviewed actually. It has like 70% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, we've talked before about the phenomenon of like why a movie remains in the zeitgeist and why it doesn't.
Yeah, I think this one was just forgotten.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess there's various factors for every movie that's forgotten or remembered.
Yeah.
You know, because there are some great movies that are truly great movies.
If it still speaks to people, like, you know what I mean, like if it transcends the time that it's made.
Yeah. By the way, the theme of this episode was my idea. We didn't say that earlier.
Yeah. We said it in the first recording, but I guess Anthony needed that credit so bad.
I need the credit.
He was like, we got to go back and say that.
So now I think we're in fresh territory.
Yeah.
For
what
God's
do you got?
sakes. Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2.
Oh, fuck you. So why?
All right. So it's
not a found footage movie.
This is what I was about to say. I was right about to say this when you were like, oh my God, we haven't been recording this entire time.
Oh shit, we haven't been recording again.
Whoa.
Oh, is it real?
I respect the fact.
Okay.
That
I like where this is
sure
beginning.
It's not good. I mean, I did see it actually semi-recently. It was on TV in the middle of the night, and I was watching again. And I was like, oh, it's not so bad. I respect the fact that the first one was found footage, and they were like, for the second one, we're going to do something different. And we're going to make it...
the different thing was the more easy, typical thing.
But... the movie Blair Witch Project exists within the universe of Book of Shadows, which I think is interesting, because it's about the fandom around Blair Witch. And people believing that Blair Witch was real.
Right. For our younger listeners, you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this because this was early internet, and people really believe this found footage movie.
The first time we saw it, you and I saw it together with our cousins and everybody, we all thought it was real.
Right.
And everybody thought it was real.
America
and then I remember
thought
seeing
it was real.
Heather Donahue on a talk show and being like, oh my God, it is fake. She's alive.
Yeah. America thought it was real, folks.
Yes, and that's the thrust. That was the original concept of Book of Shadows. The original, I mean, everybody always says this to cover up for their shitty movie, but apparently the screenwriter, whose name I don't have right now, has said that his original screenplay was much better, and it was much more focused on that. That the fan culture, and how easily the public can be duped into believing something. So, and some of that is still in it.
Yeah.
And I just also think that it's got some parts in it that, I mean, it's not a great movie, but I think it's interesting, and it's got some parts in it that are genuinely scary. Like when they see the footage of themselves killing the other campers, and they have no memory of having done it, and then they all realize at the same time that they're murderers. That's really scary. I think that's an effective sequence.
Yeah, and they don't show the witch. They don't. They continue, but you do see more supernatural shit.
But remember, at the end, the wife is like possessed by the Blair Witch, and then they hang her.
Yeah.
And then when they're watching the footage with the police, she's like, please don't kill me, please don't kill me. What are you doing? I'm your wife. Wow. And then they kill her.
I feel like you're convincing me.
It's really worth a second.
I gotta go back and look at this.
I mean, it's shitty, but it's worth the second watch.
We talked about Blair Witch 2 episodes ago with Vin because we were saying there's a Blair Witch game coming out, which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
And we were talking about there was a third Blair Witch, a reboot a couple years ago, which was found footage, but I couldn't even finish watching it.
I was just gonna say that one I couldn't finish watching either. That one's actually supposed to be a direct sequel to the first one, ignoring the second one. And I would argue that the second one is still better than that third one.
I can't. I at least watched the second one. The third one, I think like the third scene, they're in a nightclub, and I'm like, this makes no sense. Why would you have cameras in a nightclub? Like, and just everybody was too pretty. They looked like models. Like the third one,
it was supposed to be Heather's brother going to find her.
Yeah,
it's a piece of shit.
You know, since we're looking things up on IMDb a lot this episode, let's look up the directors. Did the directors of Blair Witch ever do anything else?
I don't know.
The Blair Witch Project, 1999.
It really is hard, I would imagine, for people to believe now, or younger generations to believe how many people believe Blair Witch was real. Like, found footage was just not a genre.
Now there's so many
footage of them.
No one would believe Chronicle is really about superheroes.
I remember us even watching it and you being like, I don't know, like, wouldn't their battery die?
Yeah.
Like, and us being like, I don't know, though. It does look so real.
Because, I mean, it was independent. So it wasn't like when you watch found footage movies now, it's good movie cameras that they just shake around to look shitty.
Like Cloverfield.
Right, exactly. Whereas, like, this really was just like a student film.
It was a video.
Where they just got a shitty camera. Like, it's not like post effects to make it look shitty. Like, it's just genuinely shitty.
Well, there was a time, and actually I was reading, when I was doing research for this episode, I was reading about what I was just talking about with the screenwriter's original idea. Yeah. And he said, one of the things he said was, it's amazing how scary it is that people believe things that are shot on video to be real.
Yeah.
Which I feel like that's kind of irrelevant because now, you know, we have so much fake shit that people fall for, like deep fakes and, you know, like there's something to be said for examining like people falling for things that are meant to trick them. By
the way, the directors have done really nothing. I mean, I could give you some names of some shitty horror movies that I've never heard of.
Yikes.
Straight to Redbox things. But that was basically it. But, you know, another thing that's interesting about the first movie, which is it's almost like an improv game because, you know, the kids doing it knew that they were making a horror movie. You know, they knew that. And
they didn't know what was going to come to scare them.
Right. They didn't know what was going to come. They didn't, like, at one point, they lose the map. That was in the middle of the night. The directors actually stole the map. Like, literally, it was like a game where, like, they didn't speak to the directors. The director was like, okay, you're in this movie. Now go camping and film everything. And then, like, there's a scene in the middle of the night where, like, there's something outside. Like, the directors really just came up to them and started fucking with them.
That's the part when they're running and they're like, what the fuck was that? What the fuck was that?
And there's one, and then at one point someone disappears and they had no idea who was going to disappear. Right. And the directors just woke them up and like, come on, you're going now. And then the other actors woke up and were like, holy shit, one of us is gone. So there's some genuine reacting going on. It is, I think, I don't know if this is still true, but I remember at the time people saying it's the most successful movie ever if you look at how much it made based on how little it cost. Like, it cost like $1,000 to make or something insane.
Yeah.
And then it made a crazy amount of money.
And also, I was reading about it.
And it reignited that genre.
Yeah. The end, there's something so uncanny and scary about them just standing in the corner facing the wall.
Yeah.
That originally that was just supposed to be a stand-in, and then they were going to add something like CGI scary to it. Yeah. And then when they watched it, they were like, no, let's just keep it.
Yeah, I think I talked about that with Vin.
With them facing the corner because that's just scary.
Oh, you know what it was?
And you know what else? Remember on Sci-Fi Channel, there was that fake documentary about the Blair Witch that came out alongside the movie. Yeah.
Right. What happened with the ending was in the beginning of the movie, there's like they're interviewing townspeople and they're all actors.
Yeah.
And they're improvising. And one woman just improvises this story about she made the kids stand in the corner. And they actually filmed that after everything else. But they were like, you know what? Let's go back to the cabin and have him stand in the corner. Because the thing that she just improvised would be a good setup to that.
Yeah.
I gotta rewatch those first two. Maybe when I buy the video game.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm up now, right?
So we each have one left, right?
Wait, let me see.
Or you have two left, and I had three.
I have two left.
I had three honorable mentions, but we already talked about 2010. That was one of my honorable mentions. Go ahead.
I have two left, so I'm gonna. I guess I've kind of been going in order now that I think about it. Okay, let me look up the year this is. Okay,
is this actually good or is it a piece of shit?
I think it's fantastic.
Do other people think it's fantastic?
Emilio thinks it's fantastic. Okay. No, I think some people have come around on this movie. I just gotta find. From 1990, this is like my third movie from 1990. From 1990, The Godfather Part 3.
Oh my God.
The Godfather Part 3. First of all, the most quoted line in The Godfather, which is, every time I think I'm out, they drag me back in. That's from Part 3. First of all, The Godfather Part 1's the best Godfather movie. The Godfather Part 1, I think, is almost a perfect movie.
Godfather 2 is overrated, I think.
Way overrated. Because you've got the stuff in the past with De Niro as young Vito, which is interesting. And then you've got the stuff in the present, which is like very political. And
you know what else is super boring and sucks? The supercut of 1 and 2 together.
Yeah,
that they show
yeah.
on TV sometimes.
They put it in chronological order.
That's not... It doesn't do anything for the storytelling.
And 3, one thing that's good about 3 is because they had less money, they had to make it present day. They couldn't make it in the past. So they had to age up all the characters. Like in it, Michael Corleone, played by Al Pacino, is in old makeup. And it's kind of good old makeup. Yeah. And it's sort of like, if you remember 2, the big finale of 2, that shows like this character's completely lost his soul, is that he kills his own brother.
Right.
He's betrayed by his brother Fredo. And even though the whole thing is supposed to be bullshit about family and family this and family that, because he was betrayed, he kills his own brother.
Right.
And what I like about 3 is like the fallout of that.
He never gets over that.
Right. He never gets over it. And also in Part 2, as a way of sort of showing that Michael Corleone is losing his soul, he's very affectless. Mm-hmm. He's very sort of stoic. Whereas in 3, you see the character, there's much more going on. There's much more emoting. He's sad. Mm-hmm. He's alone. His second wife, which was played by Diane Keaton, left him at the end of Part 2. So he's been alone for all these years. He's an old man. Some of his kids, his son doesn't even talk to him. Mm-hmm. His daughter talks to him. He's just everything. He's lost everything. Like, I really love the scene in Part 3 where they're at the Vatican and he goes into a confessional and he starts crying.
That's bananas, though, that like it goes all the way up to the Vatican.
Well, the first movie's organized crime, the second movie's politics, and the third movie is the church. Right. So it's supposed to be like corruption goes higher and higher and higher. Right. But I love the scene in 3 where he goes into the confessional and he's crying and he goes, I killed my own brother. I killed my mother's son. I killed my father's son.
I mean, he's great. He gives a great performance in it. Right. I would say one of the reasons probably that movie is shit on is because of Sofia Coppola. I mean, and I think that it would have been a better movie.
She's not a good actress.
She's not. She's a great director. She's not a good actress.
Yeah.
And I think that it would have been a better movie if they had kept... Well, Winona Ryder was originally supposed to play that part.
Right. I don't know if Winona Ryder dropped out.
She dropped out. I think she got pregnant and she dropped out.
She would have been better.
She would have, because she's a great actress.
Right. Yeah, but
Sofia Coppola's a bad actress. When she gets killed...
Yeah, but she doesn't have a lot to do in that.
There's also the weird storyline with her and...
Yeah, there's the incestuous storyline with her and her cousin, played by Terry Benedict.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you were just going to say when she dies, spoiler alert, she dies at the end.
Her performance sucks. But he's got a great performance.
He does this, there's this thing where he screams, and then he screams again, but they drop out the sound, so you just see him screaming.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I think the reason people don't like it is 1, because of her. 2, because I think people had it out for Francis Ford Coppola at that time. I think people were like, fuck you for making this movie, fuck you for your daughter. Like, I think people were against him at that time.
And also, like, the first 2 are very 70s, and then this one came way later.
Right.
And then wasn't it originally supposed to be, like, the death of Michael Corleone? It wasn't supposed to be called Godfather 3, right?
He wanted to call it The Death of Michael Corleone, which would have been clever because he doesn't die until the very end.
Right.
But the idea is his whole life is like a death.
Right. It would have made it less like a Part 3 and more of like an epilogue.
It really is almost like an epilogue.
Yeah. Also, fun fact, I'm not sure if this is true, you would know, but I've heard The Godfather Part 2 is the first mainstream movie to have
Part 2, right,
which then became the norm afterward.
Right. And it shows how much power he had, because when he made Part 2, they were like, you can't call it Part 2. People are going to think it's like the same movie. You have to call it something different. And he was like, no, it's Part 2. But then when he made Part 3, they were like, you have to call it Part 3.
Yeah.
And he wanted to call it The Death of Michael Corleone. And like, no, it has to be called Part 3.
That's interesting how that came full circle.
Yeah, but
because it really isn't like 1 and 2 really are twin movies
Go together
or something.
very well.
Yeah.
And they're made very close to each
Yeah,
other.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
both made on the same kind of camera.
Yeah.
3 feels like a movie from the 90s, but I think like we say, like the point of this episode, it's underrated.
Oh,
People
yeah.
treat it like it's fucking dog
It's not
shit, and it's
horrible.
not.
No,
it's not at all.
Bridget Fonda's in it, right? In a very
Yes,
small,
but barely.
Whatever happened to her?
That's another mini-sode.
All right.
So The Godfather Part 3, check it out.
Okay. So my number 1
Oh boy, I'm so excited.
is a hot take, and not because
Wait, did you do your honorable mentions yet?
no.
Because you should do your honorable mentions before you
All
do
right. So
number
my
one.
honorable mentions are funny. There's a lot of horror here. I guess because horror movies beget a lot of sequels. Genre movies in general have a lot of sequels.
Right.
Although one of them is not. So one of them is The Evening Star, the sequel to Terms of Endearment.
I like it.
It's on my honorable mentions because I think it's a pretty good movie.
It is a good
but
movie.
it got totally shit on because Terms of Endearment's so great, and it's
Yeah.
very rare to have like a sequel to like a dramatic film like that.
Right.
And then my other one is Nightmare on Elm Street 2,
Okay.
just because it's got the interesting queer subtext.
But I think that has been embraced.
Yeah, it definitely has. All right, so my number 1 is a movie that most people don't even know exists.
Whoa.
And it's probably not very good, and I haven't seen it in a long time, but I still think that the concept of it is really, really, really interesting. And it is... Should I pull up the year? I feel like you've been pulling up the year on all of them.
Yeah, pull up the year.
Let me pull up the year. Hold on. Let me get onto
Why don't you
IMDb.
put a little work into this, Anthony?
Hold on, please. Okay, 1979.
Whoa.
Let's see. Who's the director? God, I really didn't do any work on this, huh?
It's all right. We're not here to fucking do work. This is Pop Culture Man Children, PCMC.
It is directed by Bill L. Norton, who I don't know who that is. 1979's More American Graffiti.
Wow. You know, I thought of that movie just because when I was thinking about my list, but then I went, no, I don't like that movie. That movie sucks.
I think it's really, really conceptually interesting.
It's like The Exorcist 2, where it makes a bold choice, but in the end, that choice does not work.
So do you remember the choice?
Yes.
So the first one is a classic, and it's interesting because it all takes place on one night in
Right.
1962. The second one is, what if we did one night, but it's cut across 4 years
Well, right, but
of
also
the late 60s and showing the rise of the counterculture.
But
So
also,
it's-
you should point out that.
It's New Year's Eve, 64, 65, 66, 67.
But the first movie, you should point out, it's one night, but it's 4 different storylines.
Right, but-
So we're following
Yes,
different
you're right,
characters
you're right.
doing independent things on one
one night.
connected evening.
This is
This is the same characters, but they're separated by both space and time.
yes, and each one is a year apart. And what's interesting about it is at the end of American Graffiti, the first one,
Yeah.
which most people don't even know there's a second one. There's a title card at the end that shows how each one of them turned out.
Yeah.
And in the sequel, you see how they got to that.
Right.
And then it ends with the same title cards.
Yeah.
From the first one.
And
But,
one
and
of
now
them-
you know the context of how they got to. And one of them is that the guy dies
In a car accident.
In a car accident. And you see him drive off into the night.
Right, and you're
then-
and he's a car racer.
Yes.
So you're kind of waiting for him to die the whole time.
Yes, and then you end up not seeing it.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because it shows like there was such a like when you look back on that decade, there's such a stark difference between the early 60s and the late 60s.
Yeah.
And the first one is so early 60s, and then this is interesting because it shows like Vietnam and it shows like the rise of hippie counterculture, and Mackenzie Phillips' character comes back, but this time she's like a drugged out hippie.
Yeah.
I just think it's really interesting. It's probably a bad movie, but I think it's a really, really interesting
And there's some problematic
concept.
stuff in it.
Yeah, sure.
The car racer guy in the first movie, he hangs out with
like a 14-year-old
Phillips.
kid. Yeah.
And then in the second movie, he falls in love with a woman who doesn't speak the same language as him.
Right.
Which I don't know why people sometimes think that's charming. It's not.
Yeah,
it's
not.
weird.
Wolfman Jack comes back for it. The Toads, Terry the Toad.
Yeah.
His whole thing is in Vietnam, and it's him trying to get discharged.
Right.
It's got
an
some
interesting
stuff
concept.
in it. It's got some more great music from the later 60s in
Right.
it.
But I think what makes the first one so exciting is that it's all these different stories happening on one night. Because it's been... That idea was then used in Dazed and Confused. That
Right.
idea has been used since... And of course, the first one was directed by George Lucas.
Right. But anyway, again, I think it's like the definition of underrated.
Right.
I think it was totally shit on.
Right.
But I think it's actually not as bad as.
And this is a
they
mention?
say.
This isn't your
No, this
actual
was my
one.
number one.
Oh, that was your number
I
one.
think this is when I was thinking. At least for now, I'm sure I'll think of more once the episode's over. But when I was thinking of
Yeah.
underrated sequels, this one is the first one I thought.
Well,
of.
whenever we do a list show, I always that night wake up and go, "Oh, I should have said this."
Yeah.
Like when we did, me and Emilio did like our favorite superhero movies, and I totally forgot Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which would definitely be on my top 5.
Yeah.
But I just didn't think of it. So this is all sort of what I thought of this week.
Yeah, me too.
Okay,
The only
that's an
cast
interesting
member to
one.
not come back was Richard Dreyfuss. Refused to come back.
He also didn't do Jaws 2.
I don't think he's ever done a sequel.
Jaws 2.
Sucks. That's not underrated.
It's a slasher movie. It's more violent and
teens.
scary.
It seems cheaper. Like
Oh,
one of those,
it's way
It's one
cheaper.
of those sequels that seems older than the original
But-
because it's such low quality.
The Universal Studios ride is based on the second movie, not the first.
Well, that ride is now defunct.
I believe in Japan it still exists
Oh,
somewhere.
really?
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
Okay. So let me do my honorable mentions. So one is one that we already did. We did a whole episode on it, Return to Oz.
Yes.
So that's an honorable mention.
Okay.
Another honorable mention, and this is a pretentious pick, but I think it's actually very good. It's a movie. It's a French film called Stolen Kisses, which is a sequel to The 400 Blows. So The 400 Blows is a very famous French New Wave film about a little boy growing up in France, and his mother has this relationship with this guy, and it's very episodic, but it's very melancholy. It's about a little boy, but and it's directed by Francois Truffaut, who is, as a critic, he wrote A Certain Tendency of the French Cinema, which was like one of the essays that sort of started the French New Wave and the auteur theory.
Mm-hmm.
So 400 Blows is like a French New Wave classic, but what people don't realize is that character then appeared in 4 more movies. Like the character and always with the same actor. So the same actor played him as a little kid, and then all the way up until him as an adult man.
That's interesting.
So Stolen Kisses is the second in the series, and this is about him. It's the third in the series. The second is like a little short film, but it's the third in the series, and this one is very romantic. It's about him falling in love with various women. And then what are the other ones? There's, let me see. I'm trying to remember all 5 of them. The lead character is Antoine Donnel, who is a writer in the movies, but most people see him as a sort of pseudonym stand-in for Francois Truffaut.
Mm-hmm.
It's 400 Blows, and then Antoine Colette, which is him with like a date with a girl. It's like a short film where it's a part of a vignette movie. Then there's Stolen Kisses, which is the American version. Then the fourth one is Bed and Board, which is about his marriage falling apart, which is actually a very depressing movie. And then the
It
fifth,
almost sounds like Before Sunrise.
it's a little bit, because it's like let's meet this person every 10 years.
Yeah.
And also, the first one is a lot about his mother, and then the others are all about his love life. So it's a lot of like his mommy issues.
Mm-hmm.
The last film is called Love on the Run. And the last film, there's a poignant scene where he meets up. His mother's dead, but he meets up with his stepfather, who is super abusive for 400 Blows, and it sort of helps him end his mommy issues. It's a really good. Those are all 4 very good movies. So my number 1 from the year.
Oh, I have one more honorable mention I forgot to.
Give it to me.
Psycho 2.
Dead stare.
It's
okay.
also on...
It's interesting for sure.
It's on a bunch of lists of underrated sequels, too. So I'm not the only one who thinks it. It really is good. Rewatch it.
Isn't that the one where like the sister becomes the killer because she's obsessed with Norman
Yes.
being in jail?
Yes.
It's an interesting
And
idea.
it's a lot of the same actors. It's Vera Miles. They
I
all come
remember the
back.
one thing I really like about it is there's a shower scene where nothing happens.
Yes.
And it's a total fuck you with the audience.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Because you're like, oh man, here's the shower scene, and then really nothing happens
Yeah.
in it. All right, I'll accept that. My number 1 is from 1985, Day of the Dead, which is the third in the Night of the Living Dead
Wow,
series.
that is a hot take because most people say Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, most people say part 2 is the best, right?
Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead is the original, the classic. It's in black and white, independent film. Amazing. The second one, Dawn of the Dead, is in color, and it's about people hanging out. They're not in a farmhouse now, or they're in a mall, and it has a lot to do with consumer
Consumerism.
culture. Right. The third one
A lot of
is
military stuff, right?
they're in a military base underground, and it's half military guys that are like becoming violent and drunk and horny, and half scientists. Okay, and they are not getting along, and there's the threat of rape, and it's very, very scary. But it's more about the military-industrial complex.
Okay.
And it also features my favorite zombie in the whole series, which is Bubs.
He's the good one, right?
Well, he speaks.
Yeah.
But he speaks kind of like Frankenstein. He kind of like just...
They teach him how to speak?
Yeah, he says like one word at a time.
Well, isn't the military trying to use them?
Right. Well, no, the military just wants to kill them. The scientists, they're originally trying to figure out... It's supposed to be years after it begins. So the scientists are trying to figure out what caused... the Night of the Living Dead. What caused this thing to happen? But then one of the scientists goes mad, and he thinks he could like train them, and that makes the military people angry.
So it's a direct sequel. Because isn't Dawn of the Dead kind of like a sequel / remake?
No, it's not a direct sequel. It's sort of a sequel. Even though we consider Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, Journal of the Dead as a series of 6, really all of them...
Are standalone.
Yeah, you can see them as they're all a different idea. I think as zombies represent different things in all of them.
Yeah.
One of the things that I like that's complex about 3 is in Night of the Living Dead, zombies represent, depending on who you talk to, it either represents American sort of patriarchal ideology or the fear of communism.
Okay.
In the second movie, the zombies represent consumerism. But in the third movie, the military's the bad guy, and the zombies are just sort of caught between them. So the zombies are not really good nor bad.
Okay.
And there's even a scene where the zombies kill and rip apart the bad guy of the movie, and the audience cheered when that happened.
Yeah.
And side story, one time I was...
The last one, by the way, is Survival of the Dead.
Survival. So
Yeah.
Diary, then Survival.
Yeah.
The Land of the Dead, I think, is very good. That's the fourth
The
one.
2 after I heard
The
are
2
horrible.
after are not very good. And I think Diary of the Dead is a found footage movie.
I think so. It's like a vlog type thing.
Yeah, and the, Survival is weird because it's like a Western, but with zombies. Because it's sort of like very long after, so it's like what would happen. I was going. What was it? I was going for not an audition. I was going for an interview to intern on a independent movie. It's the only movie I ever interned on. But like these were these offices where a lot of production was going on, and so I was interviewing to be part of this movie, but there were also auditions, and the guy sitting next to me was the guy who played Bubs
Oh, really?
from Day of the Dead.
Did you recognize him right away?
Yeah, I was like, that's Bubs. But I didn't say anything to him, and now when I look back, I think he was probably auditioning for some shitty commercial.
Yeah.
I could have made his day by saying that character you played is really important, because I would compare Bubs to like Boris Karloff as Frankenstein. It's a really good performance, because he makes you feel empathy for the zombies.
Right.
So that's my favorite. I like it even more than Night of the Living Dead. I think Day of the Dead is... I think it's the best George Romero film, I think, and it's the best of that series.
Okay.
It also has a strong female protagonist, where the first one...
It was a black male protagonist.
Right, which everyone thought was very progressive, but the female character kind of like, she begins the film, but then she just becomes comatose. And later on, George Romero says, the thing I regret most is making her so weak. Mm-hmm. And then he even produced a remake in the 90s, and they changed her character entirely to make her strong.
Yeah.
So
I remember that remake.
Yeah. I mean, the whole series is good, but Day of the Dead that's my number one.
Remember the Dawn of the Dead remake from the 2000s?
There's so many remakes and fake sequels and reboots because they never copyrighted the first movie. Like you could go make a
Isn't
Night of
there,
the
like-
Living Dead movie right now and no one can sue you.
Isn't
It's
there
public
like
domain.
an Italian series to like Zombie? Aren't
Right.
those supposed to be sequels
Yeah.
as well?
You're right. It's it's in the public domain.
And then there's Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Is that a satire?
Return of the Living Dead. Okay. Here's the thing about Return of the Living Dead. Night of the Living Dead was
By the way, that remake is from also 1990. 1990 was quite a year for film.
Oh, you bet it was. So Night of the Living Dead is written by George Russo and it's directed by George Romero. George Romero goes on and makes Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead. George Russo splits with him and he goes, I'm going to do my own sequel. And then he makes Return of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead 2. So literally the two creators of Night of the Living Dead split off and make two alternative.
That's interesting.
But the Day of the Dead, but the Return of the Dead movies are really more pastiche and funny and really interesting.
The first one is 1985, Return of the Living Dead. I remember it being kind of like goofy.
But in a cool way. I really I like those movies for their own thing. They don't have anything to say.
And then there's like a Return of the Living Dead 2, which is weird because it's
Right, that series kept going on. So that's my list for now. I'm sure I'll think of one later that I'll go, fuck, that should have been on it.
Yeah, me too.
But
Obviously.
this is it for now.
It's been great recording this episode twice with you.
Yeah, I think the second one was better than the first one.
Yeah.
We had more energy.
Yeah.
So, this is Pop Culture Man Children PCMC. We come out every Wednesday. You can subscribe to Pop Culture Man Children anywhere podcasts are available. We come out every Wednesday. We have never missed a Wednesday. We
Ever.
have never missed a show.
Never.
I don't care what's going on in my life. I will fucking
Let
make
the Amazon
an
burn.
Fuck the Amazon. Fuck Hong
Fuck
Kong.
Amazon.com.
Fuck. No, don't fuck any of those things. But no matter what, I think this show keeps me sane, so I will always make this show. And it's my favorite podcast.
It's up there for me.
So, Anthony, thank you for being here again.
Thank you.
We end every episode by quoting Animal from Muppet Babies, where he says,
Go bye-bye.